We are on Daf Tzadi Gimel Amid Beis 93b, and we are about 7-8 lines from the bottom. The Gemara is going to analyze Ula's statement. In our Mishnah, it said that what is constitutes being too far on the path outside of Yerushalayim. You're on the way, and so therefore you're so far out that you can't participate in the Korban Pesach, and you're exempt. And the first time round, then you would make it the makeup date on the 14th day of Iyar, Pesach Sheni. What's the criteria? And it said in our Mishnah that if you're from in the area of Modi'in and the equivalent all around Yerushalayim, that would be too far. And Ula explained that the distance would actually be 15 mil. Let's say 15 kilometers. And the basis for this is that Ula is of the opinion that the definition of being too far is if you, at the moment the mitzvah begins, wherever you are, you would have enough time to make it into Yerushalayim to shech the korban. That's close enough. But if you were to leave right then and walk to Yerushalayim, you would not be able to get there in time to actually bring the korban, meaning before sunset. That's when you are exempt. And he then goes on to say that we know that a person can travel 10 parsa or 40 mil, because each parsa is 4 mil, 40 mil. So let's say 40 kilometers, that a person could walk that in a day. And he added that from dawn to sunrise, it would be 5 mil. And from sunset to nightfall would be 5 mil. And therefore, the remainder of the day, from sunrise to sunset, this person would be able to walk 30 mil. Half of that would be from noon to sunset. And noon to sunset is the time of the mitzvah of the Korban Pesach. So if he set out at noon and he couldn't make it by sunset, that means that he couldn't bring the Korban Pesach if he set out at the time of the mitzvah and get there to do the mitzvah. And that's the concept that it really is based upon. If he set out and had enough time to get there to do the mitzvah of bringing the Korban Pesach. So that's 15 mil. And so far, our Mishnah said, once you're outside of the area from Modi'in and on, then that means that is 15 mil away. Gufa. So now the Gemara analyzes that statement itself. What is a distant way? If he cannot enter with enough time to shech the korban. Rabbi Yehuda said, Rabbi Yehuda says, no. He's got more time than that. He doesn't have to come and shecht it because someone can do that on his behalf. Rather, he has to be so far away that he couldn't come in time to eat the Korban Pesach that night at the Seder, which gives you the whole night half the night as well until midnight. Amalei Rabba le'ula. So Rabba said to Ula, L'ditcha kasha l'Rav Yehuda kasha. I have a question on both of you. L'ditcha kasha, I have a contradiction in your own opinion. Earlier we had a question. If somebody is going to be tummy, where when nightfall comes, he's able to eat the Korban Pesach. That means right now he's not come in and do the Korban Pesach, but tonight he'll be able to eat the Korban Pesach. You, Ula, said that counts as valid. And over here, you're saying it's invalid if he can't do the Korban Pesach, even though that at night he'll be valid. Wait, you were the one that said that you can bring a Korban Pesach for somebody that's Tamei Sheretz, even though right now he can't enter to make the Korban Pesach to shecht it, but he could come in to eat it at night. So to over here, if this person is too far to come and bring the Korban Pesach, he can still have someone do it on his behalf, and he can come and eat it at night. Why you say that this is too far? Also, Rabbi Yehuda kasha. And he says the reverse there. By someone who's tamei, he said that you can't bring a Korban Pesach on his behalf, even though at night he'll be able to eat it. And here he says if the person is far enough that he cannot make it to bring the Korban Pesach, but he would make it to eat the Korban Pesach, that is sufficient. So for both of you, it's contradictory. Your opinions in regards to who is too distant, it seems to contradict your opinions in regards to someone who is tamei can't eat it. By tuma, just as over here, he may not be able to come and shech the Korban Pesach to bring it, but he'll be able to come in time to eat it, and yet you have opposing opinions in both of these. Amar Le, so Ula responded, and he responded both to for his own to defend himself and Rav Yehuda who disagreed with him. It's not a question to me. It's not a question to Rav Yehuda. This is what the Torah says, that there is an exemption for someone who is at a distance, and therefore it doesn't make a difference if you can make it at night. The point is that the mitzvah of bringing the korban is an exemption for derech rechoka, for somebody who is at a distance, and that's the way the Torah structured it. So it doesn't make a difference if he can get there at night. Whereas in Tuma, as long as he is tahor, is going to be fine at night and he'll eat the Korban Pesach. That's sufficient. And this is the wording of the Torah. The Torah says v'ish asher hu tahor is somebody who is tahor u'v'derech lo haya. So that tells me that because he wasn't on a path, he wasn't at a distance. But if he was, even though he's tahor, and that idea is that he has to be able to bring the Korban Pesach. And that's the way, so it's a separate structure of the exemption because he was at the time of the bringing of the korban, he was on the way. And Rav Yehuda, now we're at Tzadi Dalet Amud Aleph 94a at the top, Rav Yehuda Likasha as well. And according to Rav Yehuda as well, it's not a question. Tamei Sheretz Rachmana Dachi, somebody who is Tamei Sheretz, the Torah exempted him. Torah pushed him ish kiyeh tamalei nefesh. The Torah, as we saw earlier, the Torah said that if somebody is Tamei by coming to contact to a dead person. Now we know someone who came into contact with the deceased is going to be Tamei for 7 days. And the seventh day, he gets spritzed by the red heifer water for the second time and goes to the mikveh. And that night he'll be able to eat the Korban Pesach. And the Torah speaks about somebody who's Tamalei Nefesh, even if it's the seventh day, right? Because the Torah doesn't make a distinction the 6 days that he's Tamei versus the seventh. So this would be his seventh day. And even though that tonight he'll be able to eat the Korban Pesach, and still the Torah says he may not bring the Korban Pesach and he can't eat it, even though that night he'll be able to eat it. Nevertheless, Torah said he can't bring it. So we see that the Torah excluded someone that's Tamei right now, even though that tonight he'll be able to eat the Korban Pesach. So that's an exemption. Whereas in somebody who's was traveling, Rav Yehuda is of the opinion the Torah did not exempt him. So there are two. Basically, their answer is they are two separate structures of exemption, and it's not a universal rule of if you can make it at night, even though and you can eat it, even though that you're not able to bring it now, you'll be okay. No, it depends on each one how they interpret the Torah's exemption of that particular concept. Taner Rabbanan, somebody was just outside of this area, Modi'in, which is the border between too far and not too far. But he has access to horses or donkeys, and he has a way to mules, and he has a way to make it into Yerushalayim on time. But he's beyond the border. So perhaps you say, you know what, he should have. He should be responsible for missing the Korban Pesach because he had a way in and he could make it in time to bring the Korban Pesach. He wasn't on the path, or he wasn't far away. And he was on the path far away. In other words, the means to get in are not relevant really to the concept. The concept is He was on the path, and it was far away. The fact that this person has a plane that they could take to fly them in is not going to change the fact or the halacha that they are too far away, and it's too far of a distance of travel, and the fact that they could get there quicker than other people doesn't change. It doesn't change that, and they would be exempt on account of that they are outside of that perimeter area of Yerushalayim. And the reverse as well. Is inside the path, but he's stuck in traffic. Now he can hop on his own horse and go and make it, and drive on the shoulder. He could detach his wagon, but he's schlepping his family into Yerushalayim for Pesach, and he doesn't want to leave anybody. He doesn't want to go and make the Korban Pesach and let them come in later at night. So say, you know what? He's stuck in traffic, so this is a far distance. He wasn't on the path. He wasn't on a derech, he wasn't on too far, so the exemption would not apply to him, even though that it is difficult for him to make it in. And Rashi points out it's not impossible, because if it was impossible, obviously that we saw earlier, an onus, somebody who is under duress and can't make it, so that would be an exemption. But if he could make it, he just simply it's difficult for him to do so. The fact that he's within the perimeter obligates him to actually go ahead and push himself in so that he can make the Korban Pesach. So these are the halachas of a derech rechoka, being on a distant path, that there's a perimeter of Yerushalayim that counts as a distance. When you're inside that perimeter, you have to make it your business to get to Yerushalayim and bring the Korban Pesach, and that's you'd be held liable otherwise. And if you're outside of that perimeter, even though that you have the means to actually speed it up and make it in, nevertheless, that is an exemption. Now, the Gemara is going to go into some numbers that are difficult to comprehend. If you take any of these literally, you're running into serious trouble with Eric. But for now, we're just going to reiterate what Ula said, and then go to Rava, who's going to try and prove that, and then bring multiple contradictions to Rava's idea. Ula had said that since there are 10 parsa or 40 mil, let's say 40 kilometers, that a person can travel in a day, and he said that 5 of those would be from dawn to sunrise, and 5 from sunset to nightfall, which means that there are 30 mil that a person would travel during the day, or 15 from midday to sunset, and that's where he got his number that Modi'in is 15 mil away. And the concept also that there are 5 mil of travel, or 5 kilometers of walking that a person could do from dawn to sunrise. Amar Rava Shita Alpha Parsi Hava Alma. So Rava says the world is 6,000 parsa, which would be 60,000 kilometers roughly, let's say. Vasumcha the Rakia Alpha Parsa, and 1,000 parsa or 4,000 kilometers would be the depth of the sky, meaning that from when the sun sets until when where the sun cannot be seen at the horizon, until when it goes so low down that you wouldn't be able to see any of its rays, is 6,000 is 1,000 parsa, a sixth of the day. That's the concept, the depth of the sky. Now, Chad the Gemara v'Chad the Svara says one of them I have by tradition, and one of them is a logical conclusion of that tradition. So it's based upon a teaching from Rabbi Bar Chana and Rabbi Yochanan that an average person will walk in a day, could walk in a day 10 parasa, 40 mil, let's say about 40 kilometers. And he continues with the idea that Ula had that from dawn to sunrise would be 5 mil. And and also from sunset until nightfall, 5 mil. Nimsa, so therefore, during the day, during sunrise to sunset, where the sun travels the distance of this part of the world, that would be 30 mil. A person can walk 30 mil. Nimsa, and if 30 mil is the distance of 6,000 parsa, the sun goes 6,000 parsa. So when in a sixth of that, which a person can walk from dawn to sunrise, or from sunset to when the stars come out, nimsa avya shel rakia, that distance of when the sun goes from beneath the horizon to where it can no longer any of its rays be seen, is a sixth of the day. And if the day, the distance, the sun's distance, the 6,000 parsa, so that means that the sun's distance after that, where it's going to dip beyond any recognition in the sky, is going to be 1,000 parsa. So the Gemara is going to challenge first the Rava and Ula's first idea that a person would travel 5 mil from dawn to sunrise or from sunset to when the stars come out, and say it's actually less. It's 4 mil that an average person can walk. So Meisave Rabbi Yehuda Eimer Avishal Rekiach Me'asar B'yeh, that Rabbi Yehuda says that actually the depth of the Rekiah, meaning the how long it would take the travel of the sun from the horizon down to where it's no longer recognizable, that is Echad Ma'asar B'yeh. It's a tenth of the day. Teda. And I can prove this to you. How much does a person usually travel in a day? An average person can walk 10 parsa, 40 mil, or 40 kilometers approximately. And from from dawn to sunrise, 4 mil. So that's the distinction from what we said. Ula and Rava was saying that you can walk 5 mil. So it's only 4 mil. Also, arbas milan, 4 mil. So if there are 10 parsa, which is 40 mil, and in the entire day, and 8 of those are from dawn to sunrise and from sunset to nightfall, that means from sunrise to sunset, it's 12. Sorry, it's 42, 32. 32 mil during the day hours, sun hours, and then from dawn to sunrise and from sunset to nightfall, another 8. That will bring you to a total of 40. Nimsa avish arakia echem asar b'yom. That means that it's a tenth of. So if you have 4 of 40, essentially, so that's a tenth. So that's the count that he has. It's a tenth of the entirety of the day. In any case, the question is, however, that Rava and Ula said that the depth of the sky, or how far the sun has to go to no longer be seen in the sky from sunset until it disappears entirely, is 4 mil, not to 5 mil. To Yufta de Rava, to Yufta de Ula, so it's a contradiction to both of them. To Yufta, indeed, is a contradiction. Let's say it's also a contradiction to Rabbi Yochanan, who said a person travels 10 parsa in a day, and which would then be divided by also 5 mil in the morning. He said, no, I never broke. I just taught the number of 10 parsa or 40 mil per day, but I didn't say that from dawn to sunrise is 5. That's an addition of Ula and Rava. Because they know that people do travel actually 5 mil in the morning, but that's because they set out before dawn. or people do travel after sunset 5 mil, but that's because they can do 4 until nightfall, and then the last mil they're willing to do the last bit of travel to get into town. So it's true that people will generally travel about 5 mil after sunset, but that's not because that's the amount of time that they would travel, the amount of space they would travel between sunset and nightfall, or rather 4 mil they travel from nightfall, from sunset to nightfall, and then an additional mil until they get into town. Let's say it's a contradiction to Rabbi Hanina. Yesterday we saw Rabbi Hanina proved that the idea of that from dawn to sunrise is 5 mil. He said, I can prove this from the fact that Lot, the angels took him to the place Tzohar and it says that they left in the morning and they rushed out in the morning and they got there when the sun was coming up. So you see that, and he said, I saw it was 5 mil. So does that mean that he saw that from dawn to sunrise, he could travel 5 mil? So he said, no. There was different because they were rushing. Vayitzu Shani. There they were rushing out of the collapsing city of Sodom. So therefore, they made it in 5 mil in that time frame that typically people would walk 4 mil. The Gemara now is going to go into numbers that are obviously not simple or to be taken literally in a mathematical sense, but nevertheless great numbers. So let's do this, and they will be further contradictions to Rava and Ula. Tashema. Coming here, Mitzrayim hoya arba meis parsa. Egypt was the size of 400 parsa, or 4,000 mil, 4,000 kilometers by 4,000 kilometers. Let's say so it's this square country that is 400 parsa by 400 parsa. Mitzrayim echameshishim bekush, and Mitzrayim is then 1/60th of Kush. Let's say it's another part of Africa. So Mitzrayim is a 60th of Africa, maybe the entirety of Africa. Which means that Egypt was 160 square parsa, and then we have Kush is 60 times that. And Kush is a 60th of the world, so the rest of the world is 60 times that. Which is which means that the world is then going to be 24,000 parsa square. Okay, and now the world is a 60th of the garden, and the garden is a 60th of Eden. So when we say Gan Eden, it's actually two things, and the garden itself is only a 60th of the Eden of the pleasure itself. The Eden, and Gehenna is 60 times that. Which tells you that our world, which is a 60th of the garden, which is a 60th of Eden, which is a 60th of Gehenna, it's just like a pot cover to the pot. It's like it's minuscule. Tashema. So in any case, Tiyufta. So this is going to be a contradiction. Because it says that the world is greatly larger than the 6,000 parsa that Rava had initially started with. He said that the world is 6,000 parsa, and here we have the world sufficiently more than that because it is 24,000 parsas square. Tashema, the Tanya. So let's prove it again. The Tanya Velio. we learned in the Academy of Eliyahu, Rabbi Nassan that Rabbi Nassan said, that all of the inhabited land, so let's say all of the Middle East, can fit under one star. Even the star is tiny. Stars are going to be much bigger than the inhabited land. Teida, we can prove it. If you look at a certain star, whichever direction you go, that star is still going to be in its position. So you see that the star, even though from our perspective looks tiny, it's huge, and it really is larger than the entirety of the area we dwell. Wherever we are, we're dwelling under the star. So we see that the entirety of our civilized or inhabited land is going to be under living under this space that is the dwelling place. The star is larger than that. So now, if you say that that where people dwell is a 12th of the day, there's another 10 parts to the rest of the world, and if so, the world would have to be more than 6,000 parsa, because we know that where we live is more than 1,000 parsa, and so that being the case, it must be that the world is larger than the 6,000 parsa itself. Tashema. Also, let's prove it from the Agala. From Egla is Taurus, I think. One of the signs in. I'm not very familiar with the astrological signs, but Agala, I think, is Taurus. It's in the north. Va'akrev and Scorpio is in Bedorim in the south. And all of the inhabited land is always between the two. And the sun is only above where we dwell for an hour during the day, because the rest of the day it's either coming up, so it's over a different part of the inhabited part of the earth, or as it's going down, it's over a different part of the earth. So it's only over us for 1 hour, and yet it never reaches between these two. It never, our entirety is only, so that means it's only a 12th of the day, and yet these stars, or these series of stars, are larger than that. Because 5 hours into the day, or let's say 11 o'clock, it is still in the east, and and by 1 o'clock it's already in the west. And it's only, the sun is only above us for that 1 hour, and yet that means that the distance of the sun that it travels during the day is going to be 12 times the area that we live in, and the area we live in is going to be larger than 500 parsa. If you're going to say that the sun only travels 6,000 parsa a day. To Yufta, so again, that's a contradiction to Rava. Tashama, a further contradiction. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, "Matshuva hashivase baskala isa Rasha." What response did the heavenly voice say to that evil person? That evil person is referring to Nebuchadnezzar, who said, "B'shasha Amar," when he said, and this is a pasuk in Yeshayahu and Isaiah, "A'ala al b'mase'av," I will travel up on the clouds, Adamah Elyon, and I will compare myself to the one above, to Hashem. Now, Yatza Baskava Amra le Rasha ben Rasha. So a heavenly voice came out and said to Rasha, the son of a Rasha, Ben Benosha Nimrod the grandson of Nimrod, the original rebeller, the evil one. and we are in 94b Tzadi Dalet Amid Beis. Shehimrin is Kol Olam Kuloi Alai, who sought to bring the entire world to rebel against Hashem b'malchusay through His kingdom. Well, let's work this out. You think you're going to make it up to the heavens to be like me? How long does a person live? Shivim Shana, 70 years. V'migvura Shemana Shana, and if he's mighty, 80 years. Shenemar, as it says, as Moshe Rabbeinu wrote in his song, Tefillah Moshe, that a person lives 70, maybe 80 years. Now let's work out what is the distance between earth and heaven. From earth to the sky is a distance of 500 years. Now, I'm not sure if this is by canoe or by camelback, so we'll have to wait for that one. But in any case, that's the distance. And the distance of every rakia itself, every one of the heavens itself, is 500 year distance. And each one of the skies itself, or the rakiyas, whatever that would be, the heavens itself, is also 500. And so too between each. So from here to the first sky, 500 year travel. From the first sky depth is 500 year travel. From there, another 500 year travel, and then the next one. And there are 7 skies, 7 rakiyas. So you got a long way to go, sir. So therefore, you're going to be, you're heading down into the depths of Sheol and to the very bottom of the pit. That's the response to Nebuchadnezzar. In any case, from the fact that it says from earth to Rakia, to the heavens, is a 500 year travel. So that's a contradiction to Rava, who had said that the 10 parsa that a person is going to do in a day into 500 years, then the world is going to be much larger than 6,000 parsa. That's a contradiction to Rava. Again, to Yufta. Gemara now goes into further astrological discussions. Here, they brings a couple of arguments between Chachmei Yisrael, the sages, and the scientists of the day, if you would. The opinion of the Chachmei Yisrael was that the revolution of the heavenly spheres, those are set. It is the within each galaxy, if you would, or within each organization of stars, they are spinning within themselves. And whereas the Chachmei Umas Olam, the scientists of the day, they said Galgal Chazer, that there's everything outside is revolving, but the Mazalos Kavuim, the stars are set in their space. Amar Rebbe, so Rabbi Yehuda Anasi responded, Tshuva l'davreim. We have a response to them. If you are right, then we should see Taurus in the south and Scorpio in the north, and that's never there. So it must be that the stars revolve in their area, and that's why they're always relative to us in the same place. So Yaakov says that I don't know if that's a good proof against them. Dilma kubetzina derichaya, maybe everything is turning, but they are towards the center of the space, so they remain where they are, just like you have in if you have a spin wheel on its axle. The axle is also spinning, but it's in its same space, but it remains in its place. Inami consinura dadasha, or like a hinge. Even though the door is turning, the hinge remains, and so is the hinge. The hinge remains relatively right in its place. Furthermore, the disagreement between the Chachmei Yisrael and the scientists of the day and the Chachmei Yaakov. The sages said, the sun is lower than Rakia, the heavens, during the day, and and at night it goes above the Rakia, the heavens. So no, the sun, when it dips, it actually goes underneath the earth. Amar Rebbe. So Rebbe said, and they seem to be correct over our teaching. Because during the day the springs are cold, and by night they are hot. So must be it's because the sun is beneath the earth. Tanya Rabbi Nassan in the summer, the sun is at the height of the heavens. Therefore, the whole world is hot. But the springs are cold. However, in the winter, the sun goes lower down in the heavens and the skies, and therefore, the entire world is cold. But the springs are boiling hot. Tana Rabbana, the Brisa taught, the sun has 4 paths that it goes. Nisan or Sivan. So in the spring, it goes over the mountains, so that the snows melt. Tamaz Avanel, travels through the inhabited areas, so that the fruits will ripen. Tisha Macheshvan and Kislev Malachas B'Yamim. In the fall, they go through the rivers, Kedeli Yavishan Aras, to dry them. Tevis Shvat V'Adar, and in the winter, Malachas B'Midbar, it goes through the desert, Kedeli Yavishan Azroim, to dry out the seeds. That's the end of your astrology lesson today, or astronomy, or neither. In any case, that's the based on Rava and Ula's idea of how the distance that you have to travel in order to be considered outside of Yerushalayim, 15 mil, which the Gemara disputed and contradicted from these multiple brises. Rabbi Eliezer Skufas. So now there was another opinion in the Mishnah which said that it's not just outside of Yerushalayim, but as long as you're outside, Rabbi Eliezer said, if you're outside of the the Azara, outside of the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash itself, that would be sufficient to exempt you from the Korban Pesach and to count as if you were far away. Now, the truth of the matter is, he could just take a step in, go in. Even though that he could just go in and then he'd be obligated in bringing the Korban Pesach. Yet we don't say to him, you know what, you're right here, you're at the doorstep of the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash, you're at the Temple Mount, go ahead and go in and bring the Korban Pesach. Why don't we tell him to go in just as we were to tell somebody who's exempt of a Korban Pesach because he never had a circumcision of bris? We would tell him, go ahead and get a bris and then come bring the Korban Pesach. By the time we learned Yehudi Arel Shaloi Mal, Anish Karis, somebody who had not had a bris, which exempts him, which he's not allowed to bring the Korban Pesach, if he doesn't go ahead and take care of himself so that he could bring the Korban Pesach, Anish Karis is punished by Kares for missing the Korban Pesach. Different Rabbi Eliezer. That's what Rabbi Eliezer says. Yet in our Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer says we don't tell him to walk in and become obligated in the Korban Pesach. As we saw earlier, the Torah says that even if he's a tahor, if he's far away, he's going to be exempt. Meaning, the only exemption for being on the way, not being where he needs to be to bring the Korban Pesach, but being at a distance, is that he's at a distance, and it's an exemption for whatever, even if you are at the boundary of where you can become obligated. We don't say you need to become obligated. It's not an exemption on account of a a patur, an invalidation in the person that he should then have to fix himself. He doesn't. However, Rava Amatanai, Rava says no. There is actually a machlokas of what the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer is, and we'll leave that for tomorrow. Machlokas of Rabbi Eliezer's two opinions in how to understand Rabbi Eliezer, and hopefully that'll bring us to the Mishnah.